All right, welcome back to Kiersti's virtual classroom. This is for Geology 9's final examination. So I'm going to run through the Kahoot, and as I run through it, I'm going to kind of give you some descriptions on some things you should focus on, and kind of reiterate some things as we go. So let's go ahead and start. All right, question 1. Streak refers to the color of a mineral in powder form. True or false? Okay, that would be true. So streak color is when you take the mineral and you scratch it across a porcelain plate. If you remember that from some of the lab videos, that color that is left behind, which is basically a powdered form of the mineral, is known as the streak. All right, question 2. Minerals with cleavage break in irregular patterns. Okay, true or false? So that would be false. Minerals with cleavage break along planes of weakness. Okay, so minerals with cleavage break along planes of weakness. Minerals that break in irregular patterns are known as fracture. Okay, so fracture is irregular. Cleavage is breaking along planes of weakness. Question 3. Oceanic crust is denser than continental crust. This would be true. So oceanic crust is much denser than continental crust because it is made up of basalt. And basalt is much more dense or much denser than continental crust, which is made up of granite. Okay, so oceanic crust is denser than continental crust. S waves are a type of push-pull motion. Okay, this would be false. So S waves are the shear waves. They go back and forth, side to side like a snake. The push-pull are the P waves. So you can remember push-pull P. S waves are shear. Divergent boundaries are associated with tensional stress. This would be true. So divergent plate boundaries are associated with tension, so pull apart, hence the term divergent. Convergent boundaries are driven by compression stress, and transform plate boundaries, where they slide past each other, are driven by shear stress. Okay, a metamorphic rock can become igneous by heat and pressure. Oh, I pushed the wrong button. A metamorphic rock cannot become igneous by heat and pressure. So this one's a little bit tricky. So igneous is formed by melt, cool, and solidify. Metamorphic is formed by heat and pressure. So you can't take an existing metamorphic rock and make it igneous by heat and pressure, but you can take an igneous rock and make it metamorphic by heat and pressure. So just make sure that you're reading the question carefully. I'm trying to go fast. All right, question 7. Infiltration refers to the movement of water through the soil to the water table. So this is true. So infiltration refers to the movement of water through the soil to the water table. Infiltration is the recharge of water from the surface to the groundwater. Question 8. Subduction occurs when two continental plates collide. This would be false. Subduction occurs when an oceanic and a continental plate collide. That's where we see the biggest, deepest subduction is with continental and oceanic together, not two continental. Two continental generally drive everything upward, and you get really tall mountain ranges like the Himalayas. A'a and Pahoehoe are two types of Hawaiian lava. This is true. So this is the rough and the rope-like lava that I showed in some of the images on the volcanic PowerPoint. So the volcanoes and igneous rocks PowerPoints. The A'a and Pahoehoe are the two types of Hawaiian lava. Texture is the only way to identify igneous rocks. This would be false. Texture and composition are the ways that we identify igneous rocks. So you need to look at the crystals as well. Just looking at texture is not going to get you to what igneous rock you are looking at. Earthquakes do not kill people. Correct, true. So earthquakes do not kill people. Falling objects, buildings, bridges, things like that are what kill people in an earthquake. If you're outstanding in the middle of a field, you are not going to die in the earthquake unless something falls on you. Hawaiian volcanoes have violent eruptions. This is false. Hawaiian volcanoes have very passive eruptions. They erupt virtually every day. Not virtually like they are online, but for the most part, they erupt every day and they're very passive eruptions. Violent eruptions are from things like Yellowstone, Mount St. Helens. Those are all much more violent than the Hawaiian volcanoes. Weather and climate are the same. This would be false, right? Weather is day to day and climate is trends over time. Climate is like saying, well, we know it's going to be hot in the summer and cold in the winter, but day to day it might change. It might be a nice breezy 75 in the summer, and then all of a sudden you have an 80-degree day in the winter. So climate is the trends over time, and weather would be your day to day. Slow cooling yields large crystals of igneous rocks. This is true. So the slower the rock cools, the larger the crystals will grow and develop. The faster the rock cools, the smaller the crystals will be in the igneous rock. Crystals need time to grow. Only igneous rocks can be formed from sedimentary rocks. So there's a lot of qualifiers here. When we say only, we're implying that only these two rocks are related. But we know that the rock cycle is a circular cycle, right? It can go in any direction. We can take a sedimentary rock and make it metamorphic. A metamorphic rock can become sedimentary. A sedimentary rock can become another sedimentary rock. Okay, so by saying only igneous rocks can be formed from sedimentary rocks, that is incorrect. What stress causes normal faults? A, shear, B, tension, C, compression, or none of the above. This would be tension. So remember, normal faults pull apart. So this is tensional stress. Reverse faults are from compression or pushing two blocks of rock together. And then strike-slip faults slide past each other, kind of like transform plate boundaries. So this would be driven by shear stress. So normal faults are driven by tensional stress. The San Andreas Fault is an example of what? A convergent plate boundary, a divergent plate boundary, continental boundary, or a transform plate boundary. So this is a transform plate boundary, right? The San Andreas Fault is on the dividing line between the Pacific plate and the North American plate, and they slide past each other. So this is a transform plate boundary. The parallel alignment of minerals in a metamorphic rock is called foliation, cleavage, fracture, or paleomagnetism. This is foliation. So when minerals in a metamorphic rock are lined up parallel to each other, that is known as foliation. There's a video that you watched in lab of me taking some Play-Doh and sprinkles and showing you how that would be created in the heat and pressure environment. Select the correct sequence of layers starting at Earth's surface. So is it outer core, inner core, mantle, crust, inner core, outer core, mantle, crust, inner core, outer core, or crust, mantle, outer core, inner core? That would be D. So we're starting at the Earth's surface, which means that crust has to come first, and this is the only one that does. So it's crust, then mantle, then outer core, then inner core. All of the following are physical properties of minerals except density, taste, hardness, chemical formula. Okay, we have keywords here. Physical properties, chemical formula. So physical properties do not mention anything about the chemistry of a mineral. These are all physical properties, okay? So there's a difference. Okay, so the chemical formula is not a physical property of mineral. It is a property of the mineral, but it is not a physical property. How do you make a sedimentary rock into a metamorphic rock? Melting, erosion, deposition, heat, pressure, or solidification. This would be heat and pressure. So here baseline is how do you make a metamorphic rock? Heat and pressure. What is the difference between plutonic and volcanic rock? Volcanic is more viscous. Plutonic is formed below the surface, volcanic above. Volcanic has large crystals, plutonic has small crystals, or volcanic is formed below the surface, plutonic above. That would be this blue one. Plutonic is formed below the surface, and volcanic is formed above. Remember, volcanic comes from a volcano. Volcanoes are above the surface. Plutonic comes from plutons, and plutons sit below the surface. Most of the world's water is located where? In the atmosphere, in the glaciers, in the Great Lakes, or in the ocean? That would be in the ocean. 97% of our Earth is, or of water is in the oceans. Okay, so most of that is locked up there, and then we've got some in glaciers and in the atmosphere and in groundwater. Very little on the surface, though. The rock cycle is a cycle because rocks are not created or destroyed. Rocks only travel in a circle. None of the above, or rocks can only go one way in the cycle. Rocks are not created or destroyed, so it's a cycle. They're just being transformed from one type of rock to another. Which of the following minerals is used to make baby powder? Fluorite, quartz, talc, or diamond? That will be talc. So talc is the softest of the minerals that are presented here. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a clue. Quartz and diamond are very hard. That would not make for very good baby powder. And fluorite is about a 4 on the hardness scale. Still not that soft. Talc is a 1, so it would make very good baby powder. Hence the term talcum powder. They now just call it baby powder. Which mineral is the hardest on the hardness scale? That'd be quartz, diamond, fluorite, or talc. That would be diamond. Diamond is the hardest mineral on the hardness scale. Which mineral is the softest on the hardness scale? Quartz, diamond, fluorite, talc. That would be talc. Talc is the lowest or softest on the hardness scale. How are sedimentary rocks formed? Dissolution, erosion, deposition, lithification, oxidation, or permutation. That would be erosion, deposition, and lithification. So this is simplified. There are a couple of extra steps in there, but these are the base steps, right? There's transportation as well. And remember, lithification is the combination of compaction and cementation in the sedimentary rock making process. A sandstone that has angular grains and is poorly sorted would be considered texturally mature and far from its source, texturally immature and close to its source, freshly broken. Sandstone cannot have angular grains. So this would be B. It's texturally immature and close to its source. So angular grains means it hasn't traveled very far to get to the ground grains. And it's poorly sorted, which means it hasn't dropped out a bunch of different sizes. So this means that it's close to its source and texturally immature. It hasn't matured as a sediment yet. Which of the following is not a type of chemical weathering? Oxidation, desertification, hydrolysis, or dissolution. So it will be the one that I made up. Desertification. Dissolution, oxidation, and hydrolysis are all types of chemical weathering. Which of the following is not a type of mechanical weathering? Frost wedging, root wedging, unloading, or acid rain. keyword there, acid. Acid rain is not a type of mechanical or physical weathering. Remember, mechanical and physical weathering are the same thing. It's just two different terms for the basically the same meaning. But frost wedging, root wedging, and unloading are all mechanical or physical weathering types. What two processes form metamorphic rocks? Melting and cementation, weathering and erosion, heat and pressure, or melting and cooling? That would be heat and pressure. So heat and pressure applied to any rock will form a metamorphic rock. A blank volcano is a large, gentle sloping mound composed mainly of basaltic lava flows. Is this a composite volcano, a stratospheric volcano, a caldera, or a shield volcano? These are your shield volcanoes. They're large, gentle sloping, and they have mostly basaltic material. Water cycle is called a cycle because water is a constant body. There is no loss of water. Water flows through channels or none of the above. So this is similar to the rock cycle. There's no loss of water. So it's just in a cycle. It's in a different form at the time. Practically all clouds and storms occur in this layer of the atmosphere. Is this the troposphere, the mesosphere, the stratosphere, the ionosphere? This is the troposphere. This is the one that's closest to Earth. This is where all weather occurs. What is the second most abundant component in our atmosphere? Is it nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, or argon? That would be oxygen. So the first most abundant component in our atmosphere is nitrogen, and then it's oxygen. What is the primary component of the Earth's atmosphere? I just gave you the answer. Nitrogen, oxygen, silica, or helium. That would be nitrogen. Nitrogen is the primary component in the Earth's atmosphere. What is the protolith of gneiss? So what's the parent rock of gneiss? Is it basalt, shale, sandstone, or granite? That would be granite. So granite is the black and white speckled rock. And if you apply heat and pressure, it takes all those black and white black and white minerals and aligns them parallel to each other and makes it look like black and white banding that you see in a gneiss. So they look similar, but a gneiss is an organized granite. What is the protolith of marble? So it's the parent rock of marble. Is it basalt, limestone, sandstone, or granite? That would be limestone. Limestone has a lot of calcium carbonate in it, which will react with acid. When you compress that, the chemicals can sometimes linger, and that is resulting in the marble. And the marble still has calcium carbonate in it, so if you put acid on it, it will react as well. So marble's protolith is limestone. Most of the groundwater in California is used for drinking, bathing, agriculture, industry. This would be agriculture. We grow a lot of crops in California, so most of our groundwater goes to ag. How does pressure change as altitude increases? So does pressure increase, decrease, stay the same, or there is no correlation? So it decreases. So the farther you go up into the atmosphere, the pressure will decrease. The alignment of minerals when crystallized to the magnetic field is known as magnetism, premagnetism, paleomagnetism, or cosmic magnetism. That would be paleomagnetism. So the alignment of minerals when crystallized to the magnetic field is known as paleomagnetism. Which is the missing mechanism in Alfred Wegener's theory of plate tectonics? Is it divergent boundaries, inner and outer core interactions, mantle convection, or mantle conduction? It'll be mantle convection. So this is the missing mechanism in his theory, the driving force of plate tectonics. What is the difference between porosity and permeability? Porosity is the flow and permeability is the spaces. Permeability is the flow and porosity is the spaces. Porosity is the flow in grains and permeability is the spaces. None of the above. If you'll notice, two of these basically say the same thing. So permeability is flow and porosity is the spaces. Remember, porosity are the pore spaces. Permeability is the ability for water to flow through something. What is the focus of an earthquake? The origin at depth, the origin on the surface, the station that records waves, or none of the above. So the focus is directly beneath the epicenter, and it is the origin at depth. The epicenter is the origin on the surface, which is what they talk about in the news a lot, but the focus is directly below that at depth. What type of motion does a P wave make? Shear, push-pull, shear and push-pull, or none of the above? That will be the push-pull. Remember, P wave, push-pull, S wave, shear. What type of motion does an S wave make? Shear, push-pull, shear and push-pull, or none of the above? That will be shear again. What is the lag time of an earthquake? The difference between the start of the earthquake and the end, the difference between body and surface waves, the difference between P and S waves, or none of the above. That will be the difference between the P and the S waves. How does pressure change as altitude increases? Oh, this is a repeat. Increases, decreases, stay the same. There's no correlation. So this is decrease. Remember, as you go up in altitude, your pressure decreases. Last question. The Earth's tilt is inclined at 23.5 degrees, 27 degrees, 15.5 degrees, or 10 degrees. 23.5 degrees. Okay, so I'm going to post this on YouTube. You're probably already watching it on YouTube by the time I say that. Your exam is going to open on the 11th, and it is due next week on the 18th. Okay? So, hopefully this helped you. If you have any questions, let me know, but you can practice the Kahoot as many times as you want, and you can watch this video as many times as you want to prepare for taking the exam. Okay, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!